Hey, it's Tina Forsyth here. So I want to talk today about urgency and the importance of ensuring that your clients have a level of urgency that they're bringing to the table in order for you to work with them. So what do I mean about urgency? I don't know the specifics of this. I couldn't tell you the science around this. I've certainly experienced it myself in my own life with many of my clients, my colleagues. The truth of being human, part of human nature is if we don't have a lot of urgency around what we want to do and why we want to do it, chances are we're not going to do what it takes to make it happen. So let me give you an example. I am a single mom. I am the sole provider for my household, for me and my two girls. I don't have a partner. I don't have another income coming into the house or anything like that. So there's a built-in urgency for me. That is, put simply, if I'm not making money, we don't have money, right? So that's a measure of urgency. Urgency can also look like an internal drive sometimes, like something needs to change. I remember years ago, almost 10 years ago now, 2009, I was at a stage in my business where I just knew something needed to change. I had spent the past 10 years, I started in 1999. I had spent the first 10 years of my business just kind of going with the flow and doing what I was doing and some amazing stuff. And I hit 2009 and I had this internal drive, this internal urgency that was basically saying to me, if you don't take this to the next level, things are going to start to fall apart. So it was sort of this internal drive. There was an internal urgency there, but it was very real. It was very visceral. It was very visceral. It was very real. On the flip side of the coin, I'll give you an example of not urgency. For me, it would be nice to lose 20 pounds. I have felt that way for years now, right? And I've hoped and I've wished and wouldn't it be nice if and blah, blah, blah. But here's the bottom line. I don't have any urgency around it. There's no real driving reason for me to do it. It's more of a wouldn't it be nice if, etc. But the truth is, until I get some kind of urgency around it, I'm not going to do what it takes to make it happen. And I spent years beating myself up for that, right? Like, oh, why aren't I doing whatever and doing this and doing what I know I should do and blah, blah, blah kind of thing. But then the truth is there's no urgency there. That's why I'm not doing what it takes. So what does this mean for you and your clients? You cannot help a client who does not have a measure of urgency in place. Now, this is important if you're a coach, a consultant, a strategist, you're being hired to bring transformation in some fashion. This is also important if you're a service provider. You're being hired to do work for clients in whatever capacity to help move the business forward in some way. If your clients do not have urgency, I dare say that they may not be a client you want to work with. They may not be a client that you want to work with. Because here's the thing, they're not going to do what it takes. You could give them the best strategy, the best wisdom, the best support, the best whatever. But if they don't have their own version of urgency, they're not going to take the steps. They're not going to make the decisions. They're not going to do what it takes to move things forward. One of my favorite one of my favorite things that we started doing years ago as part of our process for enrolling people into programs. So sometimes it's on our application page. Sometimes it's part of a conversation I'm having with a person where we'll talk about, okay, well, what's the change you want to see? What do you want to see happen in the business? What do you want to see shift or change here? They'll share whatever that is. Okay, great. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that this happens now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that this change happens now? And guess what? If they're like, it's a 5, it's a 6, it's a 7, it's a 3, I've learned not to work with that person. If they're not showing up with at least an 8, 9, or a 10, and preferably a 10. The best clients I've ever worked with are the ones who've shown up and said, this needs to change now. I'm tired of this. I can't take it anymore. One of my favorite things is when a client shows up and is like, if this doesn't change, I might shut down my business. That's urgency. That's a drive. That's a space where it's like, all right, we can make things happen here now. There's nothing worse than trying to drag a client along to their success if they aren't feeling the urgency, if they aren't feeling the drive for it, right? And believe me, I have been there. Been there, done that. And especially if you haven't thought of this before, you might be able to look back at past clients or even current situations and see and realize where, the urgency was missing. That's why this didn't work out. And it's really challenging when you are working with a client. You're showing up to bring the best of who you are to the table, and you're trying this and you're trying that and you're doing this and you're jumping here. You're bringing everything you possibly can, and it's not happening. So you're feeling frustrated. You're feeling potentially, annoyed. You're feeling like, oh my gosh, maybe I suck, right? You might start to question yourself. They could be feeling the same way. They're going to be feeling frustrated and annoyed and everything, because they're not making the progress that they were hoping to make together. What it actually boils down to is there wasn't the urgency to begin with. So I invite you to consider this here today. If you haven't done this already, consider it for yourself in your own business. If you're not making progress, what is your urgency? But even more importantly, or equally as important, what is the urgency of your clients? Are you tapping into the urgency with them? And if you aren't yet, well, maybe you could be. What kind of difference could that make? And then to commit to yourself, for me, it's like if they're not an 8, 9, or 10 in urgency, we're not going to work together. Because I'm not in the job of dragging someone through to their own success. I'm just not. I mean, it's tiring and it doesn't work. So I don't want to do it. I don't want you to do it either. Right? So start tapping into that urgency. Start seeing and really embracing how that comes into play. And believe me, when you're working with the people who have urgency, who are motivated, who are just like, this needs to happen and it needs to happen now, that's where the magic happens. That's where you get to do your best work to help them move forward. They get the results of what you're doing together, and everything just comes together beautifully. So go ahead and share. I'd love to hear any questions or comments you have around this. It might be a new topic or a new perspective for some of you. Go ahead and share here with the video. And until next time, it's Tina Forsyth.